Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with these nerds.
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarch is Ted.
And today we continue our intro to D&D with Paladins. I'm going to start this video by thanking Easy Roller Dice for sponsoring it. Whether it's your first set of dice or your 1,000,000th set of dice, Easy Roller Dice is the dice company for you. You can find a link in the description below, easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy, as well as a one-time coupon code to save 20%. Go get your Easy Roller Dice.
So we are on to our intro to D&D series. We're doing the Paladin, and you can find that on page 82 of your PHB.
Now, the Paladin is one of the holier characters in the game. He's a holy warrior, and it's actually one of the character classes. Whether you're actually familiar with D&D or not, you're probably familiar with this character, the trope of the Paladin. Yeah, it's very prominent in a lot of pop culture, as well as games like WoW.
So you have like holy warriors, righteous knights, glade guardians, justicars. So you have people who are generally, don't have to be, but generally on the side of good, and they're out for good's sake.
Yeah, they're divine conduits, if you will, like Lancelot or the 12 Peers of Charlemagne, or a couple to mention.
You have Joan of Arc, and people are generally familiar with her and all of her exploits.
And as we mentioned WoW earlier, there's also Arthas Menethil from the old school Warcraft games.
What can you expect from being the Paladin? What is a player going to get out of being the Paladin?
Well, first and foremost, we said he's a holy warrior, and part of that is being the warrior. So you start off with that D10, that high hit points. So that means you're going to be able to get into combat, be able to take damage, and just keep going.
And just like the warrior, you've got the shield and armor proficiencies, all of them, as well as simple and martial weapons.
Pretty standard stuff. And of course, because you are more of a warrior than anything else, you get the least amount of skills in the game that are not weapon and armor based.
Right. But because you are that holy, you are that divine conduit, you are possessed of a number of magical powers that you can choose to use however you want.
Also, probably worth mentioning too, in addition to their magical abilities and being a divine conduit, is they get odd saving throws for a warrior class. It's actually their mental stats that are actually stronger than their physical stats when it comes to resisting things. In this case, it's their wisdom and their charisma, so their willpower and their force of will.
So that actually tends to go well with a paladin build, because typically you are going to put high stats in your physicals because you are the warrior. So you're kind of guarded mentally by the symbol of your power.
So let's get into it. What kind of special and abilities and extraordinary abilities can a player expect to get access to by playing a paladin?
Well, as a paladin, first and foremost, you have right from the beginning the ability to heal with a touch, and you can either do heal damage that had been caused, or remove certain status effects that are affecting another player character.
Like being diseased or poisoned, or restoring lost abilities.
Yes.
You also have a divine sense where you can sense celestial, fiend, or undead.
And that like kind of goes right in with their ability to channel divinity, right? Depending on which kind of paladin you are, you're going to have different abilities where you invoke your god and you get to do cool things based on that.
Well, you mentioned God, but I mean, they don't even necessarily have to be a follower of a specific faith. The 5th edition paladin really has kind of moved away from that. So now you have a order, and that's your focus. So if you don't want to actually get into the godly aspect and you want to be like, all right, I care about this, you pick that
oath, based off your oath, yeah.
So we have the Oath of Devotion, Oath of Vengeance, and Oath of the Ancients.
Yeah, now your Oath of Devotion, that's the paladin everyone's kind of familiar with. The holier than thou, the holy roller, lawful stupid, all these terms, everything you can think of, really comes down to this guy. But in 5e Dungeons and Dragons, they branch out a little bit, and they offer a couple other versions of paladins.
So the Oath of Vengeance is probably one of the more heavily played, and it is designed to be like, all right, I'm going to go out, I'm going to kick butt, and I don't worry about taking names. It is meant to dish out a crap ton of damage and,
It's dark. It's
It's
the
dark,
darker
yeah.
of the paladins.
Well, you're seeking retribution in some fashion. Yeah.
The law has failed. I will get my vengeance one way or another.
Yeah, as far as Oath of the Ancients, you have more of a in line with the Fae. They see the beauty in the world and they want to continue that.
Greenpeace, natural protectors, the hippie version of the paladin, essentially.
So you're kind of more aligning yourself with Fae and nature, rather than like, oh well, I'm going to worry about all this other stuff.
And with the Oath of Devotion that Dave mentioned earlier, it's dialed back a little bit. You could play that Holy Roller, but there is also more of the idea of the honor and certain tenets of kind of order and structure to it.
So in combat, what are these guys, able to do? We talked about them being warriors. What do they got going on?
Well, first of all, they're a warrior class, and pretty much every warrior class in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, they get to choose a fighting style. Now, the fighting styles that the paladin gets to choose from are, defensive, dueling, great weapon fighting, and protection. So basically, they're all based around using a big heavy weapon, or carrying a shield, or wearing a lot of armor.
Indeed, and that really gives them the ability to tank as they're used to doing, regardless of whether you're using them in an MMO or a tabletop RPG. They're used to being able to take that damage, and this goes along with it.
And like most warrior classes, they get an extra attack.
So, being able to get up there and dish out the damage, totally a good thing.
But, when you're talking about, hey, what can they actually do in combat, that is only the tip of the iceberg. I want to say what paladins are most known for. They're known for smiting their foes. That's what they do. When they hit something, they can choose to expend their smites, which is fueled by their divine magic. And paladins, they are secondary casters. They're not just warriors. And by secondary, I just mean they're not a full caster like a wizard or a cleric. But they do get quite a bit of magical abilities, which then they can use to channel and fuel into their smite attacks.
So now they do get spells up to 5th level, and if you choose, you can actually use them to cast spells. You can use them to, I'm going to heal the party, and I'm going to do non-combat stuff with them. But as Dave says, more often than not, paladins are saving those spell slots to just literally exert that magical power into their sword swings or weapon swings to cause more damage in combat.
Now, worth mentioning is the paladin spell selection, because they tend to be very thematic. Depending on what kind of paladin you are, you get different spells to choose from. But even just ye old paladin spell list, many of them are, hey, cast this spell as a lesser action, takes effect when you hit something with a weapon. That is very common amongst the paladins. You can even do that and then use your smite power on top of it. So it's a very powerful, very strong fighting class.
And actually, in the scope of martial characters, you are going to be dishing out the most amount of damage, especially if you're following those kind of tactics.
On top of spells, they also exude auras that gain more power as they gain levels. And those auras, they have a general aura of courage, but then each individual oath also can have auras that affect others in certain ways.
And so this winds up giving not only you protection versus certain things, courage is against fear, as one would guess, but it's going to extend to your allies that are close, so that just your sheer presence on the battlefield is bolstering your allies in combat, which totally fits the theme of the paladin.
And depending on what kind of paladin you are, it determines how it actually helps your allies. So, and then lastly, there is their Keystone Ability, which is one of the more thematic ones in all the game, and that is at 20th level. They actually transform to take on the aspects of their beliefs, whether they're following an oath or following a deity. They actually become living embodiments of this, physically oftentimes changing how they appear on the battlefield and giving them a slew of really cool abilities that they can bring to bear against their enemies.
Yeah, they become very hard to kill, they dish out more damage, and they gain resistances.
So on top of all this, let's ask the question, what races make the best paladins?
Well, Dragonborn, right off the bat, charisma is a prominent ability for paladins, and typically paladins are going to be martial, getting into the thick of combat, so getting both charisma and strength, is going to be right there in line with that.
I also believe your half elf is going to really shine as a paladin. Their primary stat is charisma. Then they get 2 floating stats that they can put wherever they want, which is going to be really helpful as a paladin. Strength and constitution, maybe?
Yep.
Yes.
So,
And in general, humans, again, the great adapters of this game can play Paladin by putting their points where they like. Or
Getting a bonus to just everything.
to get everything, yes.
so we don't want to look past Hill Dwarf. These guys are already designed to be tanks. So getting that extra hit point per level from Hill Dwarf is going to go really, really well with this particular build.
While those are probably like the 3 best, most versatile races for this class, there is a couple like Half Orc and Mountain Dwarf that deserve honorable mention just because of some of their special abilities. And of course, as always, you can play whatever you want and have a good time with it. There's also other races that are going to get just a bonus to charisma or just a bonus to strength. So all of these are really great for playing paladins with, and it means you have a lot of options when you choose the paladin class.
But as always, you can choose to play whatever you want. If you happen to have any questions in regards to paladins, how to play them, anything about their abilities, our great fans as well as ourselves will be able to answer them down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Don't forget to go down to the description where we found the link to easyroller.com/nerdarchy and find that special coupon code.
You can also check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.